Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Toronto Blue Jays situation just escalated dramatically, and for the first time all offseason, it genuinely feels like they're going all in on something massive. Following an encouraging press conference from Ross Atkins yesterday afternoon, multiple new reports have emerged from notable Blue Jays reporters, including Ben Nicholson-Smith and others, revealing some extremely encouraging information surrounding their pursuit of Kyle Tucker. But this isn't just encouraging speculation anymore. For the first time all offseason, it appears they're closer than ever, and they're actually committing fully to acquiring the star outfielder. Let's break down these new reports and developments because there's significant news to cover, and honestly, the landscape has shifted dramatically in the last 24 hours. We can start with Mitch Bannon, one of the most credible reporters who works for The Athletic. The Blue Jays have reportedly increased their efforts to bring Kyle Tucker to Toronto, according to Bannon's sources. In the last 12 hours or so, dating back to late last night, after the press conference where I noticed Ross Atkins' language seemed different and more optimistic, new reports started surfacing from Ken Rosenthal and others confirming that the Jays are genuinely interested in Kyle Tucker. Robert Murray reported it independently, and then Mitch Bannon of The Athletic dropped a substantial report revealing that the Toronto Blue Jays remain linked to both Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker despite signing Kazuma Okamoto. League sources told Bannon that the Jays have increased their efforts to recruit Tucker, which represents new information, and Tucker remains a roster fit even after signing Okamoto. Meanwhile, a reunion with Bichette appears increasingly unlikely at this point. This is genuinely significant information, and we'll cover the Bo Bichette situation separately, but for Mitch Bannon to publish this, amid all the recent smoke from Robert Murray, Bob Nightingale, Ross Atkins himself hinting at possibilities, and other credible reporters, this feels substantial. Bannon specifically stated they have recently increased their efforts to acquire Kyle Tucker. The report goes on to explain that the Jays, as reported in early December, invited Tucker to tour the franchise's player development facilities. Players including Guerrero, Miles Straw, and Joey Loperfido have commented on Tucker's social media posts, but Toronto's recent recruitment of Tucker has been more aggressive, according to league sources. This is exactly what you want to hear if you're a Blue Jays fan hoping for aggressive moves. He also discusses some details surrounding roster construction, noting that if they do acquire Tucker or want to bring Bichette back, they'll potentially have to make a trade moving Anthony Santander. Again, there'll be separate coverage of the Bichette situation because it does seem less likely now, but that opens up different possibilities. This is genuinely significant news, and if you look back at any major free agent signing, especially someone like George Springer back in 2021, this is exactly how it started. Smoke started developing slowly, reports from multiple credible reporters started emerging, and things gradually built momentum until it became reality. This seems to echo that pattern. There have been numerous reports recently, and to hear this specifically from Mitch Bannon carries real weight. Then, even later into the night, Ben Nicholson-Smith broke his relative silence and confirmed the Blue Jays haven't closed the door on Bo Bichette or Kyle Tucker. They've had recent dialogue with Tucker, at least about parameters around a potential deal, but at a time when the Jays already have a strong roster, they're positioned to proceed on their own terms. This is perhaps the most significant report of all because Ben Nicholson-Smith has been somewhat pessimistic this offseason about major additions. To hear confirmation from both Mitch Bannon and Ben Nicholson-Smith genuinely changes how we can evaluate this situation. It's gone from, okay, they might be outside looking in after signing Okamoto, to they seem pretty interested, to they have actively ramped up their efforts significantly. Let's examine what Ross Atkins said in his press conference yesterday. Atkins explicitly stated the door is still open for additions, and even added during the press conference that we have ownership support available. Maybe I'm reading too much into specific language, but that feels like the closest we'll ever get to Ross explicitly saying we're not finished. That was yesterday afternoon, and since then, all these new reports have emerged, and the situation has accelerated dramatically. Now let's consider another report from late last night from Jim Duquette stating that a league source told him the Mets, Dodgers, and Blue Jays are the most aggressive suitors for Kyle Tucker. Nothing appears imminent at this moment, but there's meaningful distance between the other teams reportedly interested in these main three contenders. Keep that context in mind because Ben Nicholson-Smith a couple days ago suggested maybe the Mets would be a bigger suitor for Tucker than the Jays, but Ben has seemingly backtracked that assessment here by confirming they're not closing the door on Bichette or Tucker. That's substantial news because we've seen in years past that if they're backing away from major targets, Ross Atkins will explicitly state in press conferences that they're moving in different directions. We can examine the full quote from Ross Atkins, and it's genuinely encouraging. He stated, "If there's a way to make our organization and team better, we will pursue that opportunity." This is about as encouraging as it gets from management. You can joke about this changes everything framing if you want, but these are the most concrete reports we've received all offseason, and the smoke is genuinely intensifying. When you examine how this team is currently constructed and all the smaller developments that have led to this point, this represents their opportunity to acquire the best player available in the market. If they successfully land Kyle Tucker, this would create arguably the best lineup in the American League, or at minimum, one of the elite lineups in baseball. They still have time to execute this move. Nothing is imminent at this point, according to Jim Duquette, and Ben Nicholson-Smith suggested it might take additional time to finalize. I'm hoping it doesn't drag out until February or March, but either way, it's an exciting situation to monitor. I want to highlight something from an article discussing the World Series Game 7 loss. Edward Rogers mentioned that his first call after the devastating series loss was to Blue Jays president Mark Shapiro, who he met with the following day. Rogers asked how you deal with that kind of loss, and Shapiro's response was direct. "We go back to work and we work on next season. We've been working ever since to try to put our best effort forward for 2026. You combine that mentality with the signings of Dylan Cease, Okamoto, Tyler Rogers, and all these other moves, and if they successfully acquire Kyle Tucker, this entire country is going to erupt with excitement. Beyond that, the mentality shift in Toronto Blue Jays baseball and how this team is perceived has already changed dramatically. The comments from Ross Atkins and ownership demonstrate genuine commitment. I'm genuinely excited to see what they do next, and I genuinely hope they complete this acquisition. It's reaching that critical moment where things could break one direction or another. I'm sure there will be people commenting that this is overreacting or reading too much into reports, and maybe that's partially true, but I genuinely believe this time, based on all the credible smoke we're hearing, that they're legitimately in serious contention. To hear all these reports from multiple independent sources suggests something substantive is developing. I suspect we'll hear additional reports today, and I'll keep everyone updated every step of the way as news develops. Thank you for following along, and let's all hope together the Jays bring in one of the best players in baseball.